want some sauce?
Scene 1, Apple, take 1.
What's up, everybody? So we are making spaghetti and meatballs today, and to do this in a way that makes people drop their jaw, you kind of have to spend a little time with this. So let me show you what I've kind of done already. Chopped up some onions. This is about 1.5 normal size onions or 2 small onions. I've got some breadcrumbs that I'm soaking in milk. Okay, you can use regular bread, just break it up and then soak it in milk, but this is actual breadcrumbs. Got a couple of eggs right here. I ground up some fresh pork. Okay, some of this I'm going to save for sausage and stuff like that. And I ground up some beef. Okay, and some of this I'm already frying up for hamburgers for myself. And then with the beef and the pork, if you're going to be grinding it yourself, just get some cheap stuff. It doesn't really make a difference, okay? But what we want to do is we're going to end up having to fry up some of those onions first. We're going to saute them before we put them in here. So those are going to kind of stay on the side. But what I want to do is I'm going to take some of this beef, okay, and I'm going to say, for the amount of meatballs that we're going to be making, that is good right there, maybe a handful and a half. And I'm going to be putting an equal amount of pork in there, and I'm going to call that good. So as far as the pork, as far as the beef, we are good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up taking these breadcrumbs that have been soaking in milk, and I'm going to throw them inside here. And you're going to see that meatballs essentially are a lot like making meatloaf. Let's go ahead and throw a couple eggs inside here. But here's some salt. That should be good. This is crushed red pepper. That should be good. You guys know me and my oregano. And for this amount of meat, I'm going to call that good. This is parsley flakes. You can do fresh. You can use dry. Now this is something you're not going to ordinarily see. This is fennel seed, okay? I'm putting a little bit inside there because I want to give the impression that I put Italian sausage in here, okay? This is basil. Once again, going with the sausage thing, this is sage. This is ground sage. This is going to help give it that impression. Black pepper. Lots of black pepper. Now in the meatballs, you can use regular garlic or you can use garlic powder like I'm doing here. We are going to end up putting some onion in here that has been cooked with a little garlic anyway, but putting that in there. This is grated Parmesan cheese. This is just a little bit of sugar. And then now we can mix this up with our hands. There was one thing that I had forgotten to put in the meatball mixture, which I ended up doing, and that was thyme. Okay, so you want to put some dried thyme in there or some fresh thyme to flavor up those meatballs a little bit. So I've got some olive oil here that I'm heating up, and what I want to do is some of these, which is going to go into the meatballs, some of this onion, and then the rest is going to end up going into the tomato sauce. I want to go ahead and I want to saute these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of black pepper on here, a little bit of salt, a little bit of garlic. And we don't really want to cook these a lot, you know, like we don't want it to burn or anything. What we want to do is we want to cook this to take some of the raw onion edge off, to soften the flavor a little bit. And that's kind of what we're looking for. So you don't want to do this on high heat. In fact, I'm going to turn this down just a little bit, which is just a little bit under medium. And you'll know that when this is done because the onions will be a little transparent or translucent, as a lot of times people will refer to it. That looks right. That looks good enough. So let's turn this off. Let that cool, and then we're going to end up putting this inside our meatball mixture. So at this point everything's mixed up real nice, and what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up using a small ice cream scoop to kind of make my meatballs so that way they're all the same size. So we got the heat on. I'm going to be putting a little bit of olive oil inside here. And I'm purposely doing this before I make my tomato sauce because I kind of want to use the remainder of what's down here, almost kind of like if I was going to be making a gravy, but I want to keep that stuff inside the pan and use it for my tomato sauce. And you don't really want the fire up too high because it'll start burning everything. We don't really want it to burn. That's good. And I'm going to let these guys fry up. After I know that they've been cooked on one side, I'm going to flip them. I'm going to keep turning these guys around until all the way around they've been cooked. Let's check it out now. That's what we're looking for. And it smells really good in here already. Okay, so we took those out. Let's go ahead and throw some onions in here. If you wanted to take a little bit of that olive oil and beef fat and stuff out, you could. I'm just trying to maximize the flavor here, and it's not going to end up hurting anything really in the long run. I'm going to end up throwing in some garlic in this. Just like before, translucent is the name of the game. And we don't want to cook this on a high heat either, because if we do, it's going to end up burning stuff, and we don't want that. So we're going to put some black pepper again, a little bit of red chili flake, don't need too much, a little bit of salt, and in just a minute here, I'm going to be adding some tomatoes, and the tomatoes that I'm going to be using are these guys, Italian tomatoes. Any tomato, quite honestly, is going to end up working. But some tomatoes do taste better. Okay, so now I'm going to be adding the tomatoes. And what I want to do is, you're probably not going to be able to see this, but I want to squish these tomatoes, and I'm going to squish them inside the can so they don't squirt all over the kitchen. But I like having a little bit of bite to the tomato. I like having it where there's some pieces of it instead of everything just kind of like a thin sauce. Okay, starting to put some basil inside here. And this is parsley flakes. Ground black pepper again. Just a touch of salt until we can bring this up to temperature, and then we can taste it to make sure that it's got the right amount. A little bit of sugar. Sometimes tomatoes can be a little acidic. This is just a little bit more thyme. But the longer we let this cook, the better it's actually going to end up being. And then that also means occasionally we'll have to add some water to it because it is going to end up drying out. Okay, so I had just tasted that. That's pretty good. I think it needs a little bit more black pepper in it. And I'm going to end up putting just a little bit of oregano in here. Okay, so this has been simmering for probably a good hour and a half or so, and now I'm going to end up taking some meatballs and throwing them inside the sauce, letting them absorb some of the sauce, letting the sauce absorb some of the flavor of the meatballs, and letting them to cook a little bit more, and also make them tender. On the back burner, I'm going to turn the fire on high. I'm going to put a considerable amount of salt in the water. So doing the dishes in the background, so that's why we hear what we hear. But we've got a pot now that is almost coming to a rolling boil, and I want to cook about maybe just a little bit more than that. So we've got this on low, and this has been setting for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And then so those meatballs have absorbed some of that tomato sauce and some of that flavor, as well as some of the stuff that's in the meatballs has gone into the tomato sauce. So let's go ahead and see if these noodles are about right. That actually looks almost right to me. My eyes are a little blurry, but that looks like that would have a little bit of bite to it still. So what we can do is go ahead and start plating this up. Then we have to pour some sauce, along with some meatballs, of course. Probably put a little bit more. Remember how I told you guys I had one of these Parmesan graters? Told you. My wife really likes Parmesan, that's why I'm doing this. Now what I've done is I've already coated some of the spaghetti in the sauce, and I've already put some meatballs in it as well. Now in the spaghetti I have mixed some of the sauce so that way the spaghetti would end up being coated. The chunks of tomato and stuff I want to have on top. And let's put one more meatball on there just for safekeeping. And then of course you do something like that just so everybody goes, oh look it, garnish. But that's how I go about making spaghetti and meatballs, guys. And you know, I liked mine hearty, at least when I could eat it. I used to like my food really hearty and rich. When it comes to pasta, you know, there's a couple of different ways that people kind of look at it. Some people say you shouldn't really cover all of the noodles. You shouldn't cover the spaghetti and sauce. You should just kind of gently coat it because the pasta really should be the center, you know, attraction. And then there's others that say cover it, cover it, cover it. And I'm the one that says cover it, cover it, cover it. But anyway, guys, that is my spaghetti and meatballs. And hopefully you like it. Hopefully you learned something from it. Give it a shot. And as always, please like, subscribe, and all that other good stuff. Feel free to share this all over the internet. And until next time, I will talk at you later.